Hi, and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Adversity, the video series. I'm Dr. Adam Millman, also known as the Philosopherdoc. On Overcoming Adversity, we attempt to find people with unique challenges that have experienced adversity but have actually triumphed despite the adversity. On this occasion, we actually have a different format. Today, it's not someone that necessarily has experienced adversity, but is an expert in dealing with adversity and instructing people how to overcome adversity. We have none other than Rabbi Yitz Wyne of the Young Israeli Torah Synagogue in Las Vegas, someone that I've had a chance to know since 2005. Much of what I know about how to understand adversity, how to deal with it, and how to overcome it comes from the teachings of Rabbi Wyne. So today, we have a very wonderful opportunity to learn from someone who helps people on a daily basis better understand the challenges that they experience, both economically, not both, but economically and spiritually and emotionally, physically, and how to understand these situations better and how to overcome them and survive, and not only survive, but thrive despite the challenges. So without further ado, I hand it over to Rabbi Yitz Wyne. Rabbi, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Doc. It's great having you.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Terrific.
So Rabbi Wyne, I want to start off with asking you just a couple questions. The first one is, how do you personally view adversity or challenges to someone physically, emotionally, or economically? How should they understand the situation, and then what does it mean, and how do they overcome it?
So very often I'll have a discussion with someone. They will give me a situation, and I have a very God-focused filter in my life. So when a person explains something that they're going through, very often before I even comment, I actually pray. Ask the Almighty. I mean, I don't stop like, God, please do this. But even now, as you're asking the question before I open my mouth, not only is it a function of thinking before speaking, but I will ask the Almighty for help in order to that God should give me the right thoughts in my mind and emotions in my heart and words in my mouth that can reach another person's heart and actually help them in a positive way. And that's just how I view my life, that I'm completely dependent upon the Almighty's help in order to do anything, in order to accomplish anything. So this is a constant exercise with me, and it's extremely deliberate. And if I don't think to do it, it doesn't happen. So your question is, to me, is when someone comes and shares adversity, their difficulties in life, how do I help them? What's the perspective? My perspective is I frame it in terms of everything that happens to a person is coming from the Almighty, that God loves us more than we love our own children, and it is somehow for our benefit. Now, if someone says, "Oh my gosh, I can't have kids, I'm married for 27 years, and I'm suffering," I'm not going to say, "Oh, it's okay, this is God's love." I'm not going to say that to them, right? But I do come from a perspective that nothing is random, and that everything is a message for them and a message for me, and there is a lesson to learn. There's meaning behind it, and then I will look upon the teachings of the Torah and my experience. And then I'll try and find a way to encourage them in order to see meaning in their difficulty and a spiritual or personal growth, and then we'll work at the end in terms of practical solutions in terms of how to help them.
Okay. So let me see if I understand. So in every opportunity you have when someone comes to you with something that is a struggle for them, you ask for the Almighty for assistance in helping them.
Yes, 100%.
Rabbi, I try to do similar things when someone comes to me with a medical problem or emotional problem, and I think whatever thought comes into my head could be coming from somewhere, and I have to take it seriously. Maybe you should ask them this. What about this? And you can't lose sight of the information that comes to your head seemingly spontaneously because it's coming there for a reason.
Right.
And then you see that whatever the suffering is, or whatever the adversity is, or the challenge, the physical challenge, economic, emotional, relationship, that there is meaning behind that. Yeah. And you have to understand, maybe there's an ultimate message, maybe there's something for someone that has a religious view and a belief in the Almighty, maybe they look at it as the Almighty's trying to teach them something. There's an opportunity to learn, and if there's an opportunity to learn, then there's an opportunity to grow. Maybe the person would eventually be better, the relationship would be better because of the struggle. You can understand something better. Maybe you appreciate when you didn't have a problem when things are going well, you appreciate that more because now you have a problem that you didn't have. Now you have the problem, but before you didn't. So you can say, "Oh, most of the time I don't have the problem."
Right.
And then what am I being asked? Not what is the meaning of this, but what does it mean to me? How can I understand it in this specific context? Because it'll be different from everyone. So how do I understand it? How do I move on? What can I glean from it? And what are and then the strategies to get past it? I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Could you give me 3 specific challenges that people come to? Maybe three difficult ones, and maybe 3 easy ones that people come to. But what are the difficult ones that people have come to?
Almost every difficulty can be put into 3 different categories. either it's a difficulty with finances, a difficulty with relationships, or a difficulty with health.
Okay.
I mean, almost everyone's issues are somehow in there. Sometimes you have a person who's just like, they're troubled by, the difficulties in the world. They might think that they themselves are very blessed, but, they could, recently someone said to me, he goes, I'm very, very troubled. I've lived a very blessed life and, but God he's not doing such a good job. If I could speak to God, I would tell him, he'd do a much better job. Because he would look at people in Ukraine and Turkey and people, who are suffering, in different ways. Again, most people's troubles are relationships, financially, or through health. So ultimately, again, every challenge a person has is tailor-made to them from God. It's like there's a beautiful story that we've discussed, but maybe some of your viewers have not. But one time it says in the Talmud, which is the compendium of Jewish law, it's our oral tradition. You have the Bible, which is our written tradition, authored by God 3,300 years ago, and then with that written tradition, there was an oral tradition to explain it. So included in that is a certain Jewish legends. And there's a legend told about a teaching. And it says, in the same way that you should thank God for the good, you should also thank God for the bad. And one time the students went to the rabbi and said, we don't get it. According to this teaching, a person should have the same emotion when they win $1 million as they do when they find out they have cancer, God forbid. Uh-huh. Right? How can such a thing work?
Right.
And so the rabbi said, I don't really know. But go ask Rabbi Zusha over there, because that man, he's suffered terribly. His children have died. He's been physically ill, poverty stricken. But he's always in the back of the synagogue, and he's always learning Torah. And anyone asks him questions, he inspires them and helps them. But he's suffered a lot. So the students went to the Rabbi Zusha and posed the question to him. Rabbi Zusha looked at them with a sense of wonder and said, I don't know why the rabbi sent you to me. I've never suffered a day in my life. His perspective was that every time, and even when his children died or when he suffered health challenges or financial difficulties, none of these were punishments. They weren't meant to suffer. He understood that pain is necessary in this world. Suffering is our choice. Uh-huh. And I think when we hit it on that terms, it almost doesn't matter what area the suffering is coming from. It's tailor-made for the individual. And now the person says, okay, it is painful, but now I have to choose, am I going to suffer through that pain? Or am I going to take that issue and am I going to find a sense of meaning and purpose in it, a growth opportunity towards it? And am I going to find a way that it can elevate me and allow me to live a better life forward? And better life might be for myself, or it might be for, in terms of, now I've learned the lesson that I can truly help another. I think that, as the years go by and you help so many people and I help so many people, there was a time when if someone came to me and they went through a divorce, it's like, I knew they were in pain, but I didn't really understand it, but then when you have someone who's close to you goes through a divorce, you get through a whole different perspective. I've never been through a divorce myself, but if I were to go through such a thing, so then I would have a more understanding, right. Because there is the intellectual level and then there's an emotional level. There's sympathizing, there's empathizing.
Right.
and life's experience sort of teach us to be deeper. So one of the ways that I will help people is by always focusing them that now they become a more valuable asset to humanity by the fact they've gone through this particular challenge.
Right.
And now it's their choice. Are they going to be more of an asset, or will they be a victim?
Right, right.
So,
Do you use it as an opportunity to hold you back and to come up with a rationalization for why you can't succeed, or do you use it as another reference for how you can survive something and move on? And I really appreciate what you said. This was and you know, our information that we use, the tools that we use to help people come from so many different areas. We don't even know where it all comes from. But I heard Tony Robbins say the exact same thing: the pain versus the suffering. The pain is part of life. The suffering is a choice.
Yeah.
And it was the same information. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is that you have this event that occurs, and it's how you interpret it. Right. It's not the situation. It's your response to it. And to just suffer for no reason is futile. To say, well, I just want to suffer for some reason. But when you suffer and then you can give meaning to it and try to understand it, and what can I learn from it? How can I get better? How can I teach other people? Then it really does become an asset. It's utilizing your past as a school to teach you rather than a way to hold you back. You know, to use your imagination of how I can now learn from this and get better in the future and grow, as opposed to something that holds you back. Because when you live in you live in the past, it's a kind of a finite destiny. Right. But when you live out of your imagination, as Stephen Covey would say, then you're bound by nothing. It's infinite possibilities. But when you allow this event to hold you and trap you, then you're stuck. Right. When you can grow from it and learn from it, and as you say, then to teach it to other people. And well, I experienced this, so now I can help other people. Because now not only do I have the empathy, but I also have the sympathy. You don't always want to give advice based on the sympathy. It's my son says, well, I want to go to bed. It's I don't want to go to bed. It's 11 o'clock. And I say to him, well, I really understand, because when it was 11 o'clock, I didn't want to go to bed either. So you can just stay awake. So you have to differentiate the sympathy and empathy. You can better to sometimes, like if a surgeon says, oh yeah, your gallbladder's all inflamed. I really feel bad about you. It's so sad that this is going on. You say, well, no, just take the gallbladder out. I need some advice on what to do. I don't need so much sympathy. I need more empathy, or kind of someone has a common understanding with you.
Right. So it's interesting. The launching point of monotheism is that there's one God who created us for pleasure. So if we knew that I am in this world to experience pleasure and to give benefit to others, in other words, make other people's lives better, more pleasurable, that automatically launches us out of a victim mentality. Right. Because as a victim, I'm not experiencing pleasure, and I'm not helping anyone else experience more benefit in their life. Right. So really, anyone who's walking with a victim attitude is necessarily disconnected with the concept of one God who is loving and kind. And it doesn't matter what they look like on the outside. Very often, I mean, it's unfortunate, but sometimes you'll see people who on the outside appear deeply religious, but if they're walking with a sense of anxiety and victimhood, internally, they're not so religious. They're not so connected. Right. Certainly at that moment, they're not. Very often, I think it's helpful to just refocus people. By the way, remember, God loves you more than you love your own children, right? You know that, right? So let's get out of the victimhood, understand that the difficulty is a challenge to make you more valuable to yourself, to your family, to your community. Now that you know that you're more valuable, do something about it. And, again, most people that are suffering, it's like, the problem with suffering is it focuses us on ourselves. Right. The best way to get out of adversity is to start focusing on other people and helping them.
Yep. There's famous psychiatry center called the Menninger Clinic, and Carl Menninger was asked, well, what do you do if somebody is having a real struggle, real breakdown? He said, we should help other people. Try to help somebody else. Because it necessarily does take the focus off of yourself and say, well, I have this problem. Well, I'm going to need to go help somebody else. Yeah. Because what you want to do when you're struggling is focus on you, and you connect with yourself, and you embrace yourself, and especially if it's a long-standing problem like depression, where it becomes almost your reality and your way of gaining significance from other people and connection, because people care about you and they want to spend time with you and help you. And if you didn't have that problem, well, then what would you do? That doesn't say that depression is not real, but you do get a certain amount of attention from other people then when things are going great. So instead of putting the focus on yourself, you put it on somebody else. Well, I don't have the energy to. when you were speaking about this in your speech yesterday to the community, is that the action is what's important. It's not just the emotion. You have to carry out the action. So I want to go. I don't have the energy to go help someone. Well, then you need to go help somebody. Like when you feel like you may not love your spouse, then you need to go and do what you used to do when you did love her. What were the actions? Because the emotion is the fruit of the verb, the action of love, doing the love. What did we do when we were in love, when we first met, when we were courting, before we had kids? And then when you do all of those things, then the emotion comes. So the mother who has a new baby loves that baby because of the process of having the baby for 9 months, and then the baby emerges, and this is the baby that I struggled through to have. So the emotion comes as a product of what you went through in order to have it. Same thing with forgiveness. You forgive the person, it's different. I don't want to forgive this guy. I remember what he did to me. And you hold it in you, and it just traps you. And he kind of controls your destiny because you have this anger and these feelings. So the process of forgiving that you have us do each year, of the upcoming holiday of Purim, giving a present to someone that maybe you don't really want to give a present to, the process of doing it enables the forgiveness that you may want to offer much easier to do. The action of doing it and then the emotion comes when you do the verb, do the action, then you feel the emotion of the forgiveness or the love.
Beautiful.
All right, well, let's move on to the next question. Is if the people that have a faith in a higher power, they seem, do you believe that they have an easier time struggling through challenges? What do you say to people that don't have faith in a higher power? It might be nice because then it directs you and guides you and there's purpose. But what if somebody doesn't have that? How do they deal with things?
Right. So it's interesting, right? So it was Marx who said religion is the opium of the masses, right? So it is true. Someone who is a person of faith, they have an incredible advantage over in terms of living a happy life, a meaningful life, getting through difficulties over someone who's not a person of faith, without question. And sometimes what I'll do to someone who's very open, saying they don't have faith, is I'll say, listen, I hate to pull the religious card, but my first name is Rabbi. So, and then I'll just give them here's the angle. Many years ago, I was in Los Angeles on the coast, and I was overlooking the ocean. The guy comes over to me and he says, he goes, what a beautiful day. He goes, this is Los Angeles, the greatest place ever. We're looking over the ocean, and we start talking, and he knows I'm a rabbi, and he's experiencing the pleasure of the ocean and the wind and the sunset. And he asked me, he said, listen, Rabbi, can a person who is not a non-believer, can they have a pleasurable life? Can they be happy? And then he goes, and by the way, I'm a non-believer. Yeah. So there's no ambiguity. Right. So I said, well, yeah, a person that's a non-believer, you can live a happy life. I said 100%. And I am a believer. But here's the difference between you and me. You walk here, you see the sunset, you feel the wind, look at the waves, and you're like, Los Angeles, what a great place. Look at the beautiful sunset. Amazing, right? But me, when I look at it, I say, look at the sunset, look at the waves, the smell of the air. Same feeling, except to me, I'm looking at it as the creator of the entire universe who made all of this just for me out of an infinite love. In other words, it's the difference between flying a transcontinental flight and being in the back row near the bathroom or being in the front row in first class. You can live a happy life. We're both going to cross the world. But how's your flight? So you can have pleasure for sure. But to me, every pleasure is on steroids. Right. Because I remember the great love. And so I try and focus the non-believer on that element. Now, there is, okay, listen, life gives you lemons. Let's make a lemonade, right? There is, see the silver lining in every cloud. You can teach a non-believer to do that.
No, for sure.
But if someone understands one God, everything good, everything bad comes from the Almighty, everything has purpose, everything has meaning. So then, for your ultimate benefit, you can't compare their life.
Right. Yeah, when you have meaning, when you wake up every day and you have purpose, you know why you're getting up, the service to the Almighty, the community, family, And then if you see meaning in everything, not just the good things, so I made $1 million, so now I can buy a lot of cars. So the meaning of the money is that you can buy a lot of cars, or that you're very smart and that you're very successful. But then when bad things happen, then it's they're lost. They don't understand why the bad thing happens. The Harold Kushner book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? I mean, it's a good question, but I think some people are often not so interested in the answer.
By point, like his answer in that book, which I do not recommend to anybody, right, was sometimes bad things happen, but that's not the Jewish answer.
Right.
That the Jewish answer is everything has meaning and everything has purpose. Right. There were many people that found solace in that idea that just bad things happen. But again, when they say, okay, bad things happen, they're saying, I'm a victim. And everyone's a victim on some level. So too bad, that's the way it is. That to me is not inspiring, nor is it true. It's not true, nor is it inspiring. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's there, and we may not necessarily know what the meaning is, but we can certainly search to find a meaning. Why am I suffering? What could I learn from it? What is the event trying to teach me? Not necessarily what is the meaning of life, because that's kind of a grander question that doesn't necessarily even help with the specific challenge.
Yeah.
Well, why did I stub my toe? Why did a hacker steal my money out of my checking account?
Sure.
Why did that happen? But to find meaning in the events enables you to kind of survive. That's, I think, whether it's in a concentration camp and getting up every day and finding meaning, or with just daily struggles in your life.
Sure.
If you don't have, I think it's easier if you do have a faith in the higher power. But even if you don't, I think you can still find meaning in different things and what you can learn from it, how it can teach you and make you better. Not to realize that you are a function. You're not a function of your circumstances, but of your decisions in response to the circumstances. Yeah. And you're not, it's somebody looks at you a certain way that you can't build your life around their emotional weaknesses and respond in a way that it disempowers you. You can allow it to affect you or not allow it to affect you. You can give a specific meaning to it that, this happened because God hates me, and he doesn't exist, but if he did exist, it would prove that he hates me because this is what should have happened. But there's many other ways to look at every situation, good and bad. And I think finding the meaning, if you have meaning, it's more difficult to have depression. If you have meaning, it's more difficult to contemplate suicide. It doesn't mean that people don't ultimately lose the struggle with the challenge, but to have meaning, long-term goals, it makes these maladies that we suffer with, boredom, depression, relationship problems, purpose in life, I think harder, easy. It makes it easier to deal with when we understand that there can be meaning in things that happen, whether we like them or whether we don't. Yeah. I wanted to ask you also, what is the biggest challenge that you've overcome?
So every stage of my life, I have different challenges. And it kind of goes, but, now I'm not, okay, so, I went through schooling, we still started a community, raised a family. So now I'm in my mid-50s. I know. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Now I'm in my mid-90s, and don't I look great? The thing is, right, that so now I think one of the main things is to stay focused on Hashem has given me a lot that I can contribute to the world, and to really push forward with a sense of ambition to make sure that I continue doing that in different ways. That, and that's going to be, again, everyone is going to have on some level, a challenge with money. If you have a lot of money, there's a challenge. If you have less money, there's a challenge. If you have your health, there's a challenge, an appreciation of it. If you don't have your health, then you have to overcome it. If you have meaningful relationships and multitudes of different kinds of relationships, everyone comes with its own challenge. But I do believe that it's a common, my challenge is actually a common challenge in the respect that when you feel that you've accomplished certain significant things in your life and you're a happy person, you are one of these people who, which I consider myself a happy person, a grateful person, it's to continue to take all that gratitude and to enhance the sense of ambition for the next challenge. And, I think we have to make sure that, if God wakes us up in the morning, that's because he wants us to accomplish something. Yeah. There's something he wants us to do. The day we don't wake up, that's the day God said, okay, you're done with this world. Okay. Right. So we always have to aspire. And with me, in my stage of life, I have to continue the inspiration to help more people than I ever have in the past, and to use the past experiences to do that. So
Excellent.
So we're okay.
Right. I just wanted you to know just a little anecdote. On Friday, I had a patient that survived a stroke, and he was and I'd seen him 3 days after the follow-up, and he was sitting in the office very nonchalant. He said, "Yeah, he lost the ability to speak for a couple minutes, and I couldn't move the left side of my body." And I went over to him and shook his hand, and he said, "Why are you shaking my hand?" I said, "Because it's very clear that the Almighty has something in store for you.
Yeah.
That you have a task yet unfinished.
Yeah.
That you're the end of the end of the book is not finished. You have more that you need to do, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't be shaking your hand. Or maybe worse, you would be in an assisted living center, not with the inability to talk and move one side of your body. So is that better or worse than death? Both would be bad. So you have something that you need to do. Every day that you wake up, you have another opportunity, and you choose how you take that opportunity. You can use it to complain about every situation and how you're a function of your circumstances and taxes and inflation and your job, the employer, your negative relatives and people around you. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to do something great.
Sure.
And do something great by helping helping other people.
Yeah.
And to find that meaning, I think, because we tell people you should be happy, smile. And this comes from this like 1930s personal development stuff, like Dale Carnegie, where like to be enthusiastic, you have to act enthusiastic. You have a big smile on your face. But if you don't have a reason to be happy, if you don't have a reason to smile, it's quite a bit harder. But when you have reasons, when you have meaning and you have purpose, it makes it a whole lot easier to have that emotion. You should smile more.
For sure.
I don't have any reason to smile. Well, let me give you a whole bunch of reasons why you should.
So it's so interesting. So when I remember when I first became a rabbi, I was like just a few months into it. I was in Miami Beach, and I was 25 years old, and my boss came to me and said, "Listen, this guy called. And he wants a rabbi to come over his life, to come over and visit him. Yeah, I had a heart attack, and he's kind of going through like a little bit of a struggle in terms of his life." So I go over to the guy's house. I don't know anything about him, and he opens the door. I said, "Hi, I'm Rabbi Wyne," and he looked at me. And he said, "Well, I asked for a rabbi to come. I was kind of expecting someone a little older."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's funny, because I was kind of the guy was in his like late 70s. I was kind of expecting someone a little younger." Because like the guy who has a heart attack, it's like, and it shocked him. So okay, I was expecting someone in their 40s or 50s, and it shocked him. Not a guy who's like, almost banging on death's door, who's like, calls for the rabbi. Okay, so we sit down, and he explains to me the following. He says, "I have died 3 times.
Oh, man.
One time walking down the street, dropped down, flat line, they came, then it happened again, then it happened again." Now he's 79 years old. And he turns to me and he goes, "Rabbi, my question is not why did I have the heart attack? My question is, why is God keeping me alive?" And I think a lot of people have that issue. Why is God keeping me alive? And I think my Rabbi Noah Weinberg taught me that is the most important question each and every one of us can ask ourselves. And we need to ask ourselves that every single day. What was I created for? What does God want from me? How can I contribute to the world? And that will connect a person with their inherent meaning. And if they're asking the question, then they will have various answers throughout each stage of their life. And those answers will give them motivation and strength to move past pretty much anything that is thrown to them.
Right. No, it's amazing teaching it. And what is that thing that motivates you? Is it your family? Because everybody has something.
Something, yeah.
That's right. Is it their kids? Is it their spouse? Is it their parents? Is it their siblings? Is it their commitment to the community? Is it charity? Is it helping others? But you have to have something. It really just can't be about you and what's in it for me. What's in it?
So one last story, and then we got to call it a day because it's so great. So there's a lady who calls me and says, "Listen, I'm going through, I have breast cancer, and I'm going through chemo." And I go, "When's the chemo treatment?" She goes, "Tuesday at 11 o'clock. I go, "Okay, so I'd like you to call me. When you sit down and they plug in, right? You're ready to go. I want you to call me." She goes, "Okay." So I remember exactly where it was. I'm driving down the I-15. I get the phone call. She calls me, "Rabbi, they just plugged me in. I'm about to start the treatment, right?" I go, "How do you feel?" She goes, "I'm scared." I said, "What are you scared of?" She goes, "I'm really scared I'm going to die." I said, that's a good thing to be scared of. Is there anything that you should be more scared of than dying? She's waiting, silent. She goes, I don't know. I go, well, for me, the one thing that I'm more scared of than dying is living a less than meaningful life.
Mm.
If I live less of a meaningful life than I could, that we should be scared of. And it gave her a whole new perspective, in that treatment. Thank God she went through a full recovery and amped up what she was doing with her life. She, in her own words, before that conversation, she was autopilot coasting. Right. And then she realized, oh my gosh, God gave me another day, gave me another year. What am I doing with it? And I think that is a fundamental challenge of every one of us.
Wow. Rabbi Wyne, thank you so much for sharing the wisdom, taking the time on a Sunday. It was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you
so much for everything you've done for us.
Thank you, Dr. Millman. You're incredible. You help so many people with not just your skill as a physician, but your wisdom and your encouragement and leadership in the community. So
thank you so much.
It's amazing.
Rabbi. All the
Thank
best.
you.
I appreciate it.